Okay, so our today's topic is about listening module, right? We are beginning with the listening module today, and the very first session is introduction to the listening module. So in this session, we will talk about what is listening, what are the parameters of listening, what are the types of questions that comes in listening, and how you can ace your listening module in few days, right? So all those tips, techniques, and the introduction part we will cover in this session. So first look at what is listening. So do you have any idea about what is listening? Do you know anyone?
Ma'am, in listening,
Mm-hmm.
we have given the sentences, sometimes the sentences, and in sentence, there are a gap.
Mm-hmm.
You need to
Okay.
fill the gap, listen the audio.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That
So what
there are a
listening is
multi,
basically? Yes.
basically listen the audio,
Hmm.
whatever they played. In
Hmm.
that video, you have to choose that particular answer
Hmm.
for given in that sentence or like matching words.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different type of question in listening.
Hmm. Correct. So listening module, you have to listen. That means there will be several audios going to play. You have to listen those audios and simultaneously you have to find out the answer of your questions. Now there will be total 40 questions. So listening module,
Yes, ma'am.
it consists of four sections. Section number 1 contain 10 questions. Section 2 contain 10 questions. Section 3 contain 10 questions and section 4 also contain the 10 section. So each section will have 10 questions. In each section, you will hear a recording of a monologue or conversation. Each recording will last for around 5 minutes. So basically, you're going to hear four recordings. Four sections means four recordings will be there. You will be hearing those recordings, and the length of recording will be approximately 5 minutes, not more than that. And this complete listening module will be for 30 minutes. Now, one difference here is if you are preparing for paper based IELTS, you have 10 minutes more to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. But if you're preparing for computer based IELTS, CBT, then you have only 2 minutes to review your answer because in that 2 minutes you can't write all the 40 answers, right? These audio recordings, they will be in the form of monologues or conversation between two or more people. And this listening test, it is same for both general candidates as well as academic candidates. And this is divided into four sections. Each section will have 10 questions. Got it? Yes. Am I clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
as I told you, the time allotted for listening section, the duration for listening test is 30 minutes. For a paper-based test, for a paper-based test, you will be given, you will be given extra 10 minutes, right? You will be given an extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. You have a question paper of listening and then you have an answer sheet. You can write your answers to the answer sheet in that 10 minutes. See here, right? So extra 10 minutes will be there to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. But if you're going for a computer delivered test, then you will be provided with only 2 minutes to recheck your answer. You cannot write in that 2 minutes. Any of you is preparing for computer delivered, all or all are like for preparing paper based tests? Do any candidate we have here who is preparing for computer delivered test? No one. We all are preparing for
No, ma'am.
paper based, right? So you
Yes, ma'am.
can just whenever you're practicing for your listening test, just imagine that 30 minutes you're gonna have your recordings and you will write your answer also in the answer in the question paper, but then again you have 10 minutes to transfer it to the answer sheet. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
Christopher, you are preparing for computer based. So please keep in mind this thing that you have only 2 minutes to recheck your answer. So in that 30 minutes, you have to type all your answers on the screen itself. There are 4 sections in your test, and the difficulty level gets on increasing from each section. Section 1 is easier, section 2 difficult, section 3 more difficult. So difficulty level gets on increase from section 1 to 2, then to 3 and 4. So section 4 is the most difficult one. And there are 40 questions in total. Each section has 10 questions. And each question will carry 1 mark. Now here the examiner gives you time to look at the question before the start of your recording. Before you start listening to your recording that is played, and in the end also they give you some time. If you came across, have you done any mock test? Have you practiced any mock test?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. I have.
All of you? Have you
No.
seen any
Yes, ma'am.
mock test? Okay. So what they're gonna do is there will be an audio, a speaker will be there that now they're beginning with the section 1. You have some time to look at your questions 1 to 5. So in that time, with that 30 seconds of time, you have to read your questions 1 to 5. And then audio will begin after the 30 seconds. So they give you some time to look at your questions. And once that section is complete, section 1 is done, now they give you some time. You have some time to check your answers. So at the end of section and in the beginning also, they give you some time. Now listening test, it is same for both academic as well as general categories. It is not different for general candidates or academic. Now to answer these questions, you might have to have a good understanding of monologues and conversations. Now monologue means when only one person will be there to talk about. Okay, now suppose if I am talking, so it's a monologue. If you and me both are here and we are talking, that means we are in a conversation, right? So section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, they are divided into this monologues and conversation. So you can interpret them and you can write your answers as the words in the audio and question might not exactly be the same. You're going to have synonyms also here. So be cautious about the word count limit and instructions, as some of the instruction would specify whether your answer should be a word, 2 words, a number or numbers. So be careful whenever you are listening to the audio, you have to listen it very carefully and you have to check your instructions, your questions also कि वहाँ पे आपको instruction क्या दिया है, right? आपको word में answer लिखना है और 2 words में लिखना है. How your listening bands are calculated? So your listening bands, they are calculated in this format. The number of answers correct will be converted into band scores. Now, what is your requirement? What is your desired band score? Anyone?
7. 7
7.
or 7.5.
So if your target is 7 or 7.5, so 7 means 30 also will be counted as 7 band and 31 is also 7 band. So if you score 30 answers correct, you will be on 7 band. But if you want to score 7.5, then 32 answers has to be correct. 32, 33 and 34, these three will be counted as 7.5. So if your target is 7.5, make sure your 32 answers are correct or more than that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and it is
Yes, ma'am.
same for both. For general candidates and for academic candidates, it's same. So in this way, your listening bands will be calculated. So suppose if you're getting only 6, in your listening module, that means your 23, 24 or 25 answers are correct. You're not getting more than this. Okay. Parts of your listening test. As I told you in the beginning that there are 4 parts of your listening test. Each section has 10 questions, total 40 questions in your listening module, and the difficulty level gets on increasing from section 1 to 2, then 3 and to 4. Now, you should be familiar with what are those parts and what is the audio about. If you have that mindset that part 1 audio will be about this topic, right? So it is easier for you, right? अगर हमें पता होता है कि हमारे पार्ट 1 का कंटेंट ये है, ऑडियो का टॉपिक ये है, तो आपके लिए इजी हो जाता है, राइट? एक माइंड मेकअप रहता है दैट यू विल गोइंग टू हियर द रिकॉर्डिंग रिलेटेड टू दीज टॉपिक्स, राइट? So here what happened is कि part 1 is always a conversation. Listening section 1 part 1 is always a conversation about 2 people and related to social context. Always. Now suppose I'm ordering something online. I have ordered from Amazon. Okay, and I'm talking to that Amazon executive to make my delivery earliest. So I'm having a conversation, he and me. We both are in a conversation and he's asking me my details. What is your name? What is your last name? What is your address? What is your phone number? What type of delivery you want? Fast fast delivery, 1 day delivery, or delivery in 3, like what kind of standard delivery I want. So all this conversation comes under social context. You're ordering the food online, you're booking a room in a hotel. What kind of room you require? You require basic room, deluxe room, super deluxe room. What kind of amenities you require? What kind of, like, you require breakfast, lunch or dinner in your hotel? So all this type of conversation, this type of audios will be in part 1. Social conversation, social context related audios. Clear? How many of you are aware of these? That what your part 1 audio is, what your part 2 audio is? Yes, please.
I'm aware.
Okay. Jyoti is also aware. Apart from these two, because it is very important to know about what your audio is. Okay. Now part 2. Part 2 is always a monologue. ये हमेशा monologue रहता है. That means only one person will be there and he is also going to talk about social context. So part 1 and part 2 are both social context related. यहाँ पे जो भी टॉक होगी वो सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट से रिलेटेड होगी. पार्ट 1 कन्वर्सेशन होगा बट पार्ट 2 विल बी मोनोलॉग. नाउ सपोज इन योर लोकल अथॉरिटीज or we can say the municipal authority, he is actually designing a park or rebuilding a park. So he is giving a speech, a monologue. Monologue is basically a speech. He is guiding you, right? So that is monologue. और वो किससे रिलेटेड होगा? सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट, राइट? फॉर एग्जाम्पल अ टॉक ऑन यूजिंग टाइम इफेक्टिवली, सो दैट कम्स अंडर सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट. Part 3 is conversation. Now part 3 and part 4, they are on educational one, academic context होता है. So part 3 conversation is between 3 or 4 people. Now here one difficulty student faces, because there are 3 to 4 people, you have to identify the speaker. Now suppose if on Zoom call the names are not written, that either it's Jyoti, Ranjit, Tanu Virmani or Baljinder, then you have to identify by listening that who is talking. Is it, now suppose if we all have the name with Zoom or iPhone, something like that. So if we all are communicating, we all are conversing, and then you have a set of questions. So first you have to identify the speaker, right? So it's gonna be little difficult for you. Even sometimes when I have a candidates with the name of iPhone, two, three candidates, then it's also difficult for me that who is talking now. So same goes here is in the conversation, when you're listening to the conversation and three, four people are there, so you have to identify, is this Zara, is this John, or is this Rose? Who is talking now and who is saying what, right? Because you have a set of questions and you have to check that who was talking now. But the topic would be related to the educational one, the academic context. And most of the time, it is all about discussing your projects, your assignment. Two, three students, now suppose Jasleen, Jyoti, and one more students, they're all talking about their IELTS writing task too. So this conversation will come under part 3, right? We all were talking, discussing about writing task 2 before starting of this session. So it is all part 3. Part 4 is a monologue, and monologue will be related to academic. Now what I am doing here is, it's a monologue because I am giving a speech, I am dictating, I'm giving you a lecture on IELTS, on your study part, on your academics part. So university lecture or any lecture comes under part 4. If I continuously speak about and you people are not communicating, not conversing here, if it's a complete me, then it's a monologue. Clear? All the parts of the listening test are clear. Please let me know if you face any difficulties, any doubts here.
No, no.
Sure, because you need to know what your part 1 includes, what your part 2, part 3, and part 4. It's very important to know about the structure of your test. Do not just start doing your test, just opening the listening test and start doing it. First, be well versed with the format, with the structure also, that what your audio is about. Now, whenever you will be practicing for your listening test, you will always keep in mind that my part 1 is a social conversation. My part 2 is a monologue about social context. Part 3 will be a conversation about academic part, right? So that means 2 or 3 people will be there and they will talk about some of the study related part, academics. And part 4 is a monologue. So most of the time it's a professor, it's a university professor, a teacher, anybody will be there and he's going to talk about academics part, any topic related to your study. Now see, section 1, as I told you, it's a general conversation, that means social conversation. The timing will be 5 minutes approx and the total question will be 10. So question number 1 to 10, they comes under section 1. Example, an interview about student well-being, a telephone conversation about buying travel tickets, when you want to travel, for how many days, what's your round trip. Okay, so it's all about travel. What's your first name, what's your last name, your destination. Student asking about accommodation. So what kind of room he requires, for how many months he requires, is he going to share with somebody? All of the details comes in section 1. Section 2, as I told you, it's a general talk, it's a monologue. Here, it's for 5 minutes. And the questions that comes here is 11 to 20, right? So question number 11 to 20 comes here. Just give me a second. So question number 11 to 20 comes here, right? And the topic would be about a radio program about a local history, a short talk about healthy eating, or a presentation about student services. So these are the general topics that comes in section 2 of your listening. Then comes your listening section 3. Now section 1 and section 2, it's all about your social context, but the section 3 and section 4 is all about academic one. So section 3 is an academic conversation, right? And here you will get the question number 21 to 30. Before starting of every section, you have some 30 seconds of a time to read your questions. Every section. And after the end of every section, you have some time to recheck your answers, to review your answers. Now here, a discussion between a student and a tutor about an assignment. So it's academic one. A seminar discussion about a research project. So again, it is related to educational one. Two students discussing their homework. So again, it is about academic one, right? Section number 4 is an academic lecture. That means it's my example. Questions will be 31 to 40. A lecture on a history of photography, a lecture on volcanoes, a lecture on animal behavior, right? So any of the topic will be there. So basically it's about lecture and academic content will be there, but only a teacher monologue will be there. Okay.
मैम what is the
Yes.
meaning of इसमें last आपने जो लिखा है ना you do not need any knowledge of these
So that
topics
means
to
you should
answer.
not have any prior knowledge of the topic. That means you should not know about animal behavior. You should not be aware about what the history of photography is. So prior knowledge means you should not need any knowledge related to these topics, because you know this is going to be very vast. Sometimes it can be about social behavior, sometimes it can be about biotechnology. So you do not need any knowledge of these topics, that what the lecture topic will be about, right? Because they're going to access your listening skills, not the knowledge, right? Now, how to write the listening answers? Students, many of my students, they ask me, ma'am, how to write the answer. So in a paper-based test, you need to ensure that there are no spelling mistakes. You may choose to write all the answers in caps or small. It's not going to affect your score. Either you can write all the answers in capital letter, or you can write small. It's up to you, but do follow the same thing. You can't do that first 10 answers you're writing in a capital letter and the next 10 answers you're writing in a small. So do not do that. Just follow the same format for all 40 answers, because you then have 10 minutes to transfer your 40 answers from the question paper to the answer sheet, right? You must use a pencil and any spelling errors will be penalized, right? If you're going to make any spellings error, then you will not get marks for this. If you're writing the answer correct, but spelling is not correct, then no marks. Okay, then no marks will be there. Now suppose you're writing this spelling, this right. Okay, you're writing this right, but you forgot this E. So you will not get marks. So make sure you always check your spelling errors. Now, some of the techniques for your IELTS listening module: predict answers before you listen. Now, how to predict the answer? Once you start reading your questions, you have to check that what can be the answer. Try to guess it out before listening to the audio, because this will help you Identify the type of information required and leads to a target listening. Now, suppose they ask in the question, who were the two people who went out for the market? So, two people. You need to name those two people. When did Queen Victoria died? So, the question says when. When means the time period you have to look for. So, once you start listening to your audio, your focus will be on the when part, the time period, right? So, always predict your answer before you start listening. Identify parallel meaning. Be ready to make the connection between what the speaker says and what the question asks. Always correlate what your question is and what now speaker is speaking. So you have to identify that meaning, that connection between the question and the connection between the speaker's talk. Next is check grammar carefully. Your answers have to be grammatically correct. In sentence completion task, you may need to change the speaker's word to make them fit in the question grammatically. So you have to check for your grammatical error. Because if you're writing the answer incorrect in the fill in the blanks, it is not grammatically correct, then ultimately you will not get marks because it will be counted as incorrect one, right? Practice using different skills at a time. Now every one of you has different set of skills, right? So you can adapt your strategy you're comfortable with. You will need to use reading, listening, writing skills at the same time. Now, as I say to my students every time, that listening is the module which require all of your senses to work together at the same time. How your ears are going to listen, your hands are going to write down your answers, your eyes will be reading the question, and your mind will be understanding it. So, all of your senses, all of your skills are working at the same time during the listening test, right? So, make sure you improve your listening skills, be a good listener. Improve your spellings. Your answers may be marked incorrect if not spelled correctly. Now, one disadvantage here is in the reading test, you can copy the spelling from the reading passage. But in listening, there is no choice. You are going to listen to the word and then you have to write. So, if you are a person who is not good with spellings, make sure you improve your spellings because you are going to hear the word and then you have to write it. So, make sure you improve your spellings. Okay. Some important points to remember: recording will played only once. You're not going to hear it again. So, be focused for the whole time, since you will not get another chance to go through the recording. So make sure you prepare your answers well and concentrate adequately. Even during your practice time, once you're practicing on the application on the YouTube, please listen to the recordings one. Do not play it back and then find your answer. Do not do it. Make a habit that you have to listen at once only. In a computer based test, you only get 2 minutes to recheck your answer. So make sure you're quick and prompt with your answer. So that you don't leave anything behind, right? Because in paper based, you have an advantage that you're going to transfer for the next 10 minutes, but in computer delivered, you do not have. You will be asked to answer different words count for each question. You have to look for your instructions. You are required to write the exact number of words. Some questions will ask you for 2 words limit, but some set of questions will ask you to write 3 words, no more than 3 words and or a number. Some question says write 2 words. So you have to be like, you have to keep in mind what your instruction says and then you have to write your answer. So whenever you are attempting the test, just circle it quickly that I have to write 2 words now. Before the audio is played, you get to read the questions first. Make sure you're using this time wisely and cautiously. You can read the questions, underline the keywords, and try thinking about potential paraphrasing as well. because you're gonna hear the paraphrasing also. It's not that the same statement of your question will be available there in the audio. It will be paraphrased. As I told you several times, reading and listening, you have to catch the paraphrasing. Writing and speaking, you have to do the paraphrasing. Okay, so make sure you just catch the paraphrasing. Students are allowed to write on the question paper, right from taking notes to underlining keywords, jotting down the paraphrase word, writing answers to any question. You can use the question paper to make notes also. It will help you to discover and locate your answer easily. So when you are reading the question, just underline that what is your targeted listening, what information you have to look for in your audio. It is recommended that you use a pencil to answer a question, because make sure you don't forget to take an eraser and a sharpener along. For writing answers, you can use either pen or a pencil, right? Writing incorrect spellings can lead you to the entire answer being marked wrong. So make sure you recheck your spellings times again and again and discover mistakes and rectify that mistakes at the same time. Okay? Now, last but not the least, you can practice your listening test. Every day on the YouTube, we are uploading a new practice test. So please start practicing from the babycode application. You can use the application also. You can use the babycode YouTube channel also, right? For all the listening audios, the questions, they are for both academic as well as the general candidates. And they are all actual tests, right? So I hope this session was informative for you and you got some idea about introduction to the listening module. That means how many sections are there, how the scoring of listening section is done, and what things you need to keep in mind once you start preparing for your listening module, right? See, for the new candidates, you can check your listening test here. Every day there is a new test uploads in the listening module section.